This keeps getting crazier. Draymond Green is calling out Steve Kerr for comments he made about Jonathan Kuminga, and it's getting messy. Meanwhile, new reports from league sources suggest that the latest public comments are tanking Jonathan Kuminga's trade value, and the Warriors may be screwing themselves. So in today's video, I'll break down all the latest drama, why it's tanking Kuminga's trade value, and the impact this is going to have on the Warriors' future. But first, hi, I'm Ballesteros. This is Warriors Digest. I need you to hit subscribe right now. We bring you daily videos breaking down everything going on with the Golden State Warriors. If you're part of that 30-ish% who watches the videos on a regular basis, but you haven't subscribed, just hit the button. It really helps the channel, and you get notified first when news like this drops, with Draymond Green going on his podcast and disagreeing with Steve Kerr's controversial Kuminga statement. I'm going to get to Draymond's comments in just a second because it's really interesting what he has to say. He brings up a really great point. But first, I'm going to refresh your memory about Steve Kerr. A couple of days ago, he gave an interview basically saying why he can't win with Jonathan Kuminga on the team. Steve said it's a tricky one because Jonathan obviously is gifted and he wants to play a bigger role and he wants to play more. And for me, I've been asked to win. And right now, he's not a guy who I can say I'm going to play 38 minutes with the roster that we have, Steph and Jimmy and Draymond, and put that puzzle together that way and expect to win. Damn, shots fired. Those statements went viral. Everybody talking about Steve basically saying, look, you're a really good player, but that doesn't equate to winning with the current construction of the Warriors lineup. Interesting point. Draymond Green disagrees. He had this to say in response to Kerr. Draymond went on his podcast and said, when I look at that statement, I take a couple of things away. One being, he said, with this roster that we have, I'm not sure. He didn't say Jonathan Kuminga can't play 38 minutes anywhere and be a successful player and be an impactful player. That's not what he said. He said with this roster. Now, do I agree with that? I don't know that I necessarily agree because we just haven't seen it. So I'm not of the mindset that something just doesn't work that you haven't had the chance to see much of. Now, Dre brings up an interesting point. We really haven't seen Steph, Jimmy, and Kuminga on the court at the same time. I had an incredibly difficult time finding stats with the three of them on the floor. If you found them, drop in the comments. Let me know because I had a really difficult time. This is from Basketball Reference, and it shows the top 10 rankings of the Warriors' best two-man lineups with these two players, how long they played throughout the season on the floor together at the same time. These were the top 10. The Steph and Kuminga combo ranked 9th with only a plus 7.6 rating. Very interesting there. But we really didn't see much of Steph, Jimmy, and Kuminga on the floor at the same time. Now, why? I mean, had a lot to do with Kuminga being injured, and then Jimmy obviously gets traded over at the beginning of February at the trade deadline, and then Kuminga was still out. Jimmy comes in, the Warriors are rolling. Steve Kerr has a difficult time integrating Kuminga back into the lineup. But the excuse all along the way from Steve Kerr had been that, look, Kuminga just doesn't work on the court with Jimmy. And we did see some limited instances of that, but we didn't really get to see it with all three of them. So Dre's point, I mean, is valid there, but also we saw enough of Kuminga play and we saw enough of the issues. We saw the turnovers. We saw the ISO ball. He's a very similar player to Jimmy Butler in that they both are very ball dominant and they're both going to have the ball in their hands a lot. And that just doesn't work with the motion offense. We get it. We've heard all of the excuses. But now this is affecting the Warriors as a team. And now we're starting to get headlines out that the Warriors back themselves into a corner after Kerr and Draymond's recent comments here. Because now league sources are looking at this and they're saying, look, Steve Kerr is telling us they don't want this guy on the team. Why would we give up major assets to acquire him in a sign and trade? And the Warriors, in my belief at this point, all the writings on the wall says they don't want him back. They want to get a different piece that fits with their team, but they're shooting themselves in the foot here. This is the time of the year when you're supposed to be getting leverage, and the Warriors aren't getting that with Steve Kerr going out and publicly trashing Kuminga. If you want to get something good in return for him, you go out and you say, hey, look what he did in the Minnesota series. My God, he came out, scored 30 points one game, 24 in the elimination game. Look at all the spectacular plays. You did see a little bit of Mike Dunleavy Jr. coming out in his exit interview, the Warriors GM, and he said that he did want Kuminga back on the team, that they were looking to re-sign him. I think that's a lie. But he had to say it because it gives him leverage if it seems as if the Warriors want to retain him. Nobody believes they want to retain him at this point. And so now you're seeing all of this coming out where league sources are saying that, teams that have interest in signing Kuminga despite limited cap space will likely call the Warriors to negotiate a sign and trade, but that inherently would give the Warriors some degree of bargaining power. But teams are now aware of exactly how Steve Kerr feels about Kuminga, and under those circumstances, they're finding it more difficult to imagine that general managers would acquiesce to the Warriors' potential desired return for Kuminga. So now they're shooting themselves in the foot by talking about this publicly. I don't care if you think he fits with the team right now, Steve Kerr. Just shut up. Stop saying anything. Don't ruin the sign and trade value. That's the only thing that we have left here. It's clear you're not going to re-sign him and work him into the system. I do think that that's the best move for the Warriors, is getting a good piece that does fit into the system. It's the best way to win a championship now. We're going to worry about the future when we get there, but just shut up. Stop talking, because now we're seeing reports like this coming out that the Kings should steal Kuminga while the Warriors keep underrating his potential. There's a rumored deal that the Kings are trying to put together. DeMar DeRozan for Jonathan Kuminga. Look, that is not enough value for Kuminga. We don't want to see the best trade asset that we've had in years here go for DeMar DeRozan. I mean, that's not the piece that we're looking for right now. If we want to work a deal with the Kings, Domantas Sabonis, that's interesting. But also you're seeing chatters around the Nets, who could Steve Kerr Kuminga's comments signal an exit. Brooklyn Nets should be watching closely. The Nets are the most likely landing spot for Jonathan Kuminga just because they have so much cap space. They can absorb him in a sign and trade with no issue. They can also send him an offer sheet, try to sign him, outbid the Warriors. Now, the Warriors obviously can match anything because Kuminga is a restricted free agent, but you've got just more and more chatter increasing that teams now are seeing the Warriors don't value Kuminga, so they're not going to be willing to part with bigger assets. It's already going to be really tricky to trade Jonathan Kuminga because of the bird rights. Now, most of the teams are going to be able to work a deal with him they're only going to be able to send out half of his value. So if he signs for $25 million a year with the Warriors in the sign and trade scenario, the Warriors are only going to be able to value that contract outgoing at $12.5 million. So it just makes it a lot more difficult for the salaries to match up in a trade. They're very limited in who they can trade with to begin with. Don't do yourself any disservice. Just shut up. Draymond, I don't want to hear it. Steve, I don't want to hear it. Stop talking about Kuminga until something is worked out. Because if you tank his value right now, that is the worst thing that you could do for this team, who's trying to put that last piece in place for that fifth championship next year. I mean, next year is the last shot, most likely. This is our best shot to get that last chip that we need to get us to the promised land. Again, I want to hear what you think. Do you think Dre's wrong for calling Steve out? Do you think Steve Kerr is right? Do you think the Warriors are going to tank Kuminga's value and get a terrible return? I want to hear what you have to say, and I'll talk to you tomorrow in the next video. Peace.